couple of weeks ago, I was putting my boys to bed. And I don't know if it was just a delaying tactic, but I don't think it was. I think it was a sincere question. One of my sons looked really sad and really troubled. And he said, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Of course." He says, "Dad, will heaven be really boring?" Fair question, really. So we talked a bit about what we have to look forward to as Christians, and we talked, the Bible talks about a new heaven and a new earth. It said everything that we enjoy in this life, all the really good things in this life will be there, and they'll be perfect, and they won't be spoiled by sin. But I also said, the best thing about heaven is that God will be there. Jesus will be there. And he said, "Oh." And he wasn't quite convinced. And I think he's probably vocalizing what many of us perhaps feel. What does it mean to spend eternity with God? Is that a good thing? I mean, I know we feel that it ought to be, but what does that mean? Well, here, David says, "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." Is that what you're seeking? Is that what I'm seeking? Does that sound good? Well, hopefully, as we look at his words, that might start to excite us, and hopefully we can get a vision of how good that is. We need to get our heads around what this means. It's difficult for us to understand because this idea of looking at God seems to go against some of the other things we're told in the Bible. Here's 3 reasons why it doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about looking at God. First of all, God's invisible. We're told that in very straight terms in the Bible. When Paul writes in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 17, he describes God as immortal, invisible, the only God. So one of the qualities God has is that you can't see him. So what does it mean to gaze on God if you can't see him? He doesn't have a face, he doesn't have a form, he's not made of stuff like you or I am. What does it mean to look at someone who's invisible? This is a big part of the experience of the Old Testament people of God. When they come out of Egypt, Egypt was stuffed full of gods you could look at. Obviously they're not real gods, but these statues of great things. You can see them in the British Museum, these great gods statues, with funny heads and that kind of thing. Very impressive to look at. And they come out into the desert, and who are they worshipping? Well, it's a God who can't be seen. Appeared to Moses in a burning bush, but God's not a burning bush. Appeared in a great pillar of fire and cloud, but God's not a cloud. There are these ways of thinking about God. He's described in different words to us. He's described as a father or a husband or a shepherd, but what does that mean? What does he look like? How can you gaze on a God you can't see? Jesus says to the Samaritan woman, God is spirit. He's made of stuff, but it's not the same stuff we're made out of. So how can you see a God who's invisible?